The space station called Vareth 9 was the biggest meeting place in the known galaxy. It floated in the dark space between 3 star systems, and today it was full of noise and movement. The yearly combat festival had brought thousands of beings from hundreds of different worlds. They filled the seats of the great arena, a round structure made of white metal and blue glass that could hold 50,000 watchers. The arena floor was made of hard, black stone. It had seen countless fights over the centuries. Blood of many colors had been spilled there. Today, it would see something that no one expected. In the center of the arena stood a female warrior of the Korvathi Empire. Her name was Ziravel, and she was the most famous fighter in the galaxy. She stood 7 feet tall. Her body was covered in scales that shone like dark red jewels under the bright lights. She had 4 arms, each one thick with muscle. Her face was almost human, but her eyes were gold with black slits like a snake. When she opened her mouth, rows of sharp teeth showed. The Korvathi were known throughout the galaxy as the greatest warriors. They had been fighting and conquering for 100,000 years. Their empire covered 200 star systems. No species had ever beaten them in open combat. Ziravel looked around at the crowd with a bored expression. She had won every fight she had ever had. She had killed enemies twice her size. She had broken the bones of creatures made of stone. Nothing challenged her anymore. She raised all 4 of her arms, and the crowd became quiet. "I am tired of easy wins," she said. Her voice was deep and rough. The translator machines carried her words to every corner of the arena. "I have beaten fighters from 30 different species. None of them gave me a real fight. So today, I make a special offer." She turned slowly, looking at different sections of the crowd. Her gold eyes stopped on the small area where the human group sat. "Humans," she said, and her mouth twisted into a smile. "You are the newest species in the Galactic Council. You have only been part of our community for 18 years. You are small. You are weak. You live such short lives. But I hear you think very highly of yourselves." Some of the aliens in the crowd laughed. The humans shifted in their seats, but said nothing. Ziravel continued. "So here is my challenge. I will fight any human male in single combat. No weapons, no armor, just body against body. If he wins, I will marry him and make him a lord of the Korvathi Empire. If he loses," she showed her teeth again, "he dies. Those are the rules of Korvathi honor combat." The laughter in the crowd grew louder. The idea of a human beating a Korvathi warrior was funny to most of the aliens watching. Humans were considered one of the weakest species in the galaxy. They had no claws, no scales, no poison, no natural weapons at all. They were soft and slow and fragile. Captain Maria Santos, the leader of the human group, felt her face grow hot with anger. She was a short woman with brown skin and black hair turning gray at the edges. She had served in the Earth Defense Force for 20 years. She knew that Ziravel was trying to shame humanity in front of the whole galaxy. "Nobody move," she said quietly to her people. "This is a trap. She wants to kill one of us to show how weak we are." The humans in her group nodded. There were 12 of them, soldiers and diplomats. They stayed in their seats. Ziravel waited. Her smile grew wider as the seconds passed, and no one moved. "No one?" she called out. "Not one human male has the courage to face me? I thought your species was brave. I thought you were warriors. But I see now that you are just prey animals pretending to be something more." Maria Santos gripped the arms of her seat hard enough to turn her knuckles white. She wanted to say something, but she knew that words would only make things worse. Then a man stood up. His name was Danny Cole. He was 32 years old, a lieutenant in the Earth Defense Force. He was not tall or short, not fat or thin. He had dark hair that was slightly too long for military standards and gray eyes that seemed very calm. He wore the simple black uniform of the Human Diplomatic Service. Maria grabbed his arm. "Danny, what are you doing? Sit down." Danny looked at her. His face showed no fear, no anger, no excitement. He looked like a man who had just decided to go for a walk. "Permission to represent humanity, Captain?" he asked. "Denied. She will kill you. Did you see the size of her?" "I saw." "Then sit down. That is an order." Danny gently removed her hand from his arm. "With respect, Captain, I am not going to watch humanity be called cowards in front of the whole galaxy. Someone has to answer her. Not you. Not like this." "Then who? When?" Danny smiled a little. It was a strange smile, like he knew something that no one else knew. "If not now, when? If not me, who?" "Those are old human questions, Captain, and I think I know the answers." Before Maria could stop him, Danny walked down the stairs toward the arena floor. The crowd noticed him moving, and the laughter slowly died. The aliens watched this small human walking calmly toward the most dangerous warrior in the galaxy. Ziravel tilted her head as she watched him approach. Her gold eyes studied him with new interest. "You," she said when he stepped onto the arena floor. "You are smaller than I expected." "I get that a lot," Danny said. He stopped 10 feet away from her and stood with his hands at his sides. "Do you understand what you have agreed to, little human? When you lose, and you will lose, I will kill you. That is Korvathe law. There is no mercy in the arena." Danny nodded. "I understand. And what happens when I win?" Ziravel laughed. It was a harsh sound like rocks grinding together. "When you win, you will be my husband. You will sit beside me in the Imperial Court. You will have power that no human has ever had." She stepped closer, looking down at him. "But you will not win. No human could ever beat a Korvathi. We will see. What is your name, brave fool? I want to remember it when you are dead." "Danny Cole." "Danny Cole." She tasted the name like it was a strange food. "Very well, Danny Cole. I will give you a few minutes to pray to whatever gods humans believe in. Then we fight." Danny shook his head. "I do not need to pray. I am ready now." Something changed in Ziravel's eyes. For just a moment, she looked uncertain. This human was not acting like prey. He was not shaking or sweating or begging. He stood before her like an equal, like someone who had every right to be there. "You are either very brave or very stupid," she said. "Maybe both," Danny replied. "But I have learned that bravery and stupidity often look the same until the fight is over." In the crowd, Captain Maria Santos watched with her heart beating fast. She had served with Danny for 3 years. She knew he had special training, but she also knew that no amount of training should be able to close the gap between a human and a Korvathi warrior. The arena master, a tall blue alien with 6 eyes, walked to the center of the floor. He raised a golden horn to his mouth. "The challenge has been accepted," he announced. "The rules are simple. No weapons, no outside help. The fight ends when one fighter yields or dies. May the strongest warrior win." He stepped back and raised the horn again. Danny took a deep breath and let it out slowly. He rolled his shoulders and stretched his neck from side to side. His movements were relaxed, almost lazy. Ziravel dropped into a fighting stance, all 4 arms raised and ready. Her tail swept the ground behind her. Her claws extended from her fingertips, each one as long and sharp as a knife. The horn sounded. The fight began. And in the next few minutes, the galaxy would learn something important about humanity. Something that would change everything. The small species from the small planet at the edge of the galaxy was about to show everyone what it truly meant to be human. The moment the horn sounded, Ziravel attacked. She moved faster than anything her size should be able to move. Her lower 2 arms swept toward Danny's legs, while her upper 2 arms came crashing down toward his head. It was a killing technique that she had used many times before. It trapped enemies between attacks from above and below, giving them nowhere to go. But Danny was not there anymore. He had stepped to the side at the last possible moment. The movement was small and simple. He did not jump or dive or roll. He just shifted his weight and let her attack pass through empty air. And then he hit her. His hand shot out and struck a spot on her lower left arm, right where the scales were thinnest. The arm went limp and fell to her side like dead meat. Ziravel hissed in surprise. She spun around, her tail whipping toward his legs like a thick leather rope. Danny jumped over it, landed lightly on his feet, and hit her again. This time, he struck a spot on her back, between her shoulder blades. Pain exploded through her body. Not the clean pain of a wound, but a strange electric pain that made her muscles shake. The crowd had stopped laughing. Captain Maria Santos leaned forward in her seat, her mouth hanging open. She had seen Danny train. She had seen him practice hand-to-hand combat with other soldiers. But she had never seen him move like this. He was like water flowing around stones, like smoke slipping through fingers. Ziravel roared and attacked again. She used all three of her working arms, throwing punches and slashes that could break bones and cut through metal. Her speed was incredible. Her power was terrifying. None of it touched Danny. He moved between her attacks like he knew where they would be before she threw them. He ducked under a swing that would have taken his head off. He stepped around a punch that could have crushed his chest. He twisted away from claws that could have opened him up from neck to belly, and he kept hitting her back. Small hits. Quick hits. Each one found a spot where her body was weak. A nerve cluster. A joint. A pressure point. Each hit by itself was nothing much. But together, they were taking her apart piece by piece. 2 minutes into the fight, Ziravel's lower left arm was still useless. Her right leg was moving slowly because of a hit to her knee. Her breathing was harder because of strikes to her sides. "What is this?" Someone in the crowd whispered. "How is he doing this?" Another asked. The aliens watching did not understand what they were seeing. Danny was smaller than Ziravel. He was weaker. He was slower. By every measure that mattered to them, he should be dead already. But he was winning. Ziravel felt fear for the first time in many years. Not fear of death, but fear of something worse. Fear of losing. Fear of being beaten by a creature that her people thought of as barely more than an animal. She gathered all her strength and charged at Danny with everything she had. Her three working arms attacked from different angles. Her tail swept low. Her teeth snapped at the air near his face. Danny moved through her attack, like it was a dance he had practiced 1,000 times. He caught one of her wrists and twisted. Her own force carried her forward and down. She hit the arena floor hard enough to crack the black stone. Before she could get up, Danny was on her. His knee pressed into her back. His hand gripped the back of her neck, right over the spot that her people called the death point. "Yield," he said quietly. His voice was calm, not even breathing hard. Ziravel struggled. She pushed herself up with her three working arms, throwing Danny off her back. She rolled and came up fighting, but she was slower now. Her movements were clumsy. Her body was not obeying her commands. "How?" she gasped. "How are you doing this?" Danny circled her, watching her carefully. "Your people are strong. Maybe the strongest in the galaxy. But strength is not everything. Humans are weak. Yes, we are." Danny nodded. "We have no claws, no scales, no poison. We are soft and slow, and we die easily. But we have been fighting for 200,000 years. Not against easy prey. Against each other. Against animals bigger and faster than us. Against everything the universe threw at us." He moved suddenly, and before Ziravel could react, he had hit 3 more nerve points on her body. Her upper right arm went numb. Every generation, we learned something new, Danny continued. Every war taught us better ways to fight. We did not just practice fighting. We turned it into an art. We turned it into a science. We have more ways to hurt each other than most species have words. Ziravel attacked again, desperate now. She only had 2 working arms and 1 good leg. Her body was failing her, but she was still a Kovathi warrior. She would not stop until she could not move any more. Danny caught her attack, turned it against her, and sent her crashing to the ground again. This time, when he put his hand on her death point, she could not throw him off. Your people evolved as the top hunters on your world, he said. Nothing could challenge you. So you never needed to learn. You never needed to change. You were born perfect, and you stayed perfect. His grip tightened slightly. Not enough to hurt, but enough to remind her that he could. Humans evolved surrounded by things that could kill us. Lions, bears, wolves, other humans. We were never the strongest or the fastest. So we had to be smarter. We had to learn. We had to adapt. That is what makes us dangerous. Not our strength, but our ability to learn from our weaknesses. Ziravel lay on the arena floor, unable to move. Her body was a map of small pains. Every nerve point that Danny had hit was now a point of fire. She could not feel 2 of her arms. She could barely breathe. The arena was completely silent. 50,000 aliens watched as a human held the greatest Kovathi warrior helpless on the ground. Yield, Danny said again. You do not need to die here. This fight is over. Ziravel closed her golden eyes. In her mind, she saw her whole life passing. She saw her training, her battles, her victories. She had never lost. She had never even come close to losing. And now this small, soft creature had beaten her so completely that she could not even stand up. Part of her wanted to refuse. Part of her wanted to make him kill her rather than admit defeat. That was the Kovathi way. Death before shame. But another part of her, a part that she had not listened to in many years, was curious. This human had shown her something she had never seen before. He had found weaknesses in her body that she did not know existed. He had moved in ways that should have been impossible. She wanted to understand. And dead warriors could not ask questions. I yield, she said. Her voice was barely louder than a whisper. Danny released her immediately. He stood up and stepped back, giving her space. He did not celebrate or gloat. He just stood there with his hands at his sides, the same calm expression on his face. The arena master rushed forward, his 6 eyes blinking in disbelief. The challenge is concluded, he announced. The human Danny Cole is the winner. For a long moment, there was only silence. Then, slowly, sounds began to fill the arena. Some aliens were shouting in anger. Some were cheering. Some were just making noise because they did not know what else to do. The human section exploded with joy. Captain Maria Santos was on her feet, tears running down her face. The other humans were hugging each other and screaming Danny's name. On the arena floor, Ziravel slowly pushed herself up to a sitting position. Her body was already starting to heal. Kovathi recovered quickly from injuries. But she knew that the damage Danny had done would take days to fully repair. She looked at the human standing a few feet away from her. He was watching her with those strange gray eyes. You could have killed me, she said. Double quotes, yes. Why did you not? Kovathi law would have allowed it. Danny shook his head. I did not come here to kill anyone. I came here to answer a challenge. The challenge is answered. You are a strange creature, Danny Cole. I haven't told that before. Ziravel slowly got to her feet. She was unsteady, but she forced herself to stand straight. She was still a warrior. She would not crawl away from this arena. You have won my hand in marriage, she said. According to my promise, I am now yours." Danny's expression did not change. "We can talk about that later. Right now, you need medical attention. Later then." She looked at him for a long moment. "But know this, human. I do not know how you beat me. But I will learn. I will understand. And then we will see if you can do it again." Danny smiled slightly. "I look forward to it." The arena master led them both away, and the crowd continued to make noise. The galaxy had just watched something impossible happen. A human had beaten a Corvathi. The weakest had defeated the strongest, and nothing would ever be quite the same again. The news spread across the galaxy like fire through dry grass within hours. Every major news channel was talking about the fight. "Human defeats Corvathi champion" was the headline on 1,000 different worlds. The video of Danny Cole standing over Ziravel was watched billions of times in the first day alone. The Corvathi Empire was in chaos in the Great Palace on their homeworld. The Emperor himself called an emergency meeting of his generals and advisors. They sat around a long table made of black stone, their red scales catching the dim light. How did this happen? The Emperor demanded. His name was Krathvalum, and he had ruled the Empire for 40 years. His voice was like thunder rolling across mountains. How did a human defeat our greatest warrior? No one had an answer. The human must have cheated, one general said. Perhaps a hidden weapon, or poison on his hands. We checked, another replied. Our sensors found nothing. No weapons, no drugs, no technology of any kind. He used only his body. Then it must be a trick, some kind of human magic. The Emperor slammed his fist on the table, cracking the stone. Humans do not have magic. They are one of the weakest species in the galaxy. They have no natural weapons. They live barely 100 years. How could such a creature defeat Ziravel? The room fell silent. No one had an answer because no one understood what had happened. Meanwhile, on Station Vareth 9, Danny Cole was being kept in his quarters on the human ship Endurance. Captain Maria Santos had placed guards at his door, partly to protect him from angry Kavathi and partly to keep him from causing any more trouble. Do you have any idea what you have done? She asked him. They were sitting in a small room. Maria was pacing back and forth. Danny was sitting calmly on his bed. I want to fight, he said. You started a diplomatic crisis. The Kavathi are demanding that we hand you over. They are saying the fight was not fair. Half the galaxy thinks you use some kind of secret weapon. The other half thinks you are some kind of super soldier. Danny shook his head. I am just a man who has trained for a very long time. Trained? Danny, I have seen Corvathi warriors in combat. They can punch through steel walls. They can move faster than the eye can follow. No amount of training should let a human compete with that. You are right, Danny said. I could not compete with her strength or her speed. So I did not try to. I used her strength and speed against her. Maria stopped pacing. What do you mean? There is an old earth fighting style called Judo. The basic idea is to use your enemy's force against them. When they push, you pull. When they pull, you push. You turn their power into your weapon. I know what judo is. But that does not explain how you hit those nerve points. How did you know where they were? How did you know Corvathi even had nerve points? Danny smiled slightly. Humans have been studying alien bodies since we first made contact. Medical research, they call it. I spent 6 years learning the weak points of every major species in the galaxy. Corvathi have 17 critical nerve clusters that can be disabled with the right kind of strike. I only used 8 of them. Maria stared at him. You planned this. You have been planning this for years. Not this exactly, but I knew that someday someone would need to show the galaxy what humans could do. I wanted to be ready when that day came. Before Maria could respond, there was a knock at the door. One of the guards opened it and announced that they had a visitor. Ziravel walked into the room. She looked different than she had in the arena. She was wearing simple clothes instead of armor. Her scales were clean and shining. The damage from the fight was mostly healed, though she still moved carefully. Maria stepped between her and Danny. "What do you want?" "I want to talk to him," Ziravel said. "Alone. That is not going to happen. You might be here to take revenge." Ziravel showed her teeth in what might have been a smile. "If I wanted revenge, do you think you could stop me? I could kill everyone on this ship before your weapons could warm up. But you are not going to do that," Danny said from behind Maria. "Because you are not here for revenge. You are here for answers." Ziravel looked at him. "You are smarter than you look, little human." Danny stood up. "Captain, please give us some privacy. I will be fine." Maria looked back and forth between them. Every part of her training told her this was a bad idea, but something in Danny's eyes told her it would be okay. "Fine," she said, "but I will be right outside. If I hear anything strange, I am coming in with everything we have." She left the room. The door closed behind her. Ziravel and Danny stood looking at each other. The room was small. She was much larger than him. In this closed space, she could reach him in a single step. "You are not afraid of me," she said. It was not a question. Should I be? I am a Korvathi warrior. I have killed more enemies than you have met in your entire life. I could break your neck before you could blink. Danny nodded. "You could, but you will not, because killing me will not give you what you want." "And what do I want?" "You want to understand how I beat you. You want to know how a weak human was able to defeat the greatest warrior in the galaxy. That question is burning inside you. It kept you awake last night. It made you come here today." Ziravel was quiet for a long moment. Then she laughed. It was a different laugh than before. Less harsh. Almost sad. "You are right," she admitted. "I have watched the recording of our fight 47 times. I have studied every move you made. And I still do not understand. You were not faster than me. You were not stronger. But you were always in the right place at the right time. You knew where I would attack before I attacked." "Training," Danny said simply. "No, it is more than that. I have trained my whole life. I have fought hundreds of battles. But I have never seen anyone move the way you did." Danny walked to the small window and looked out at the stars. "Do you know how humans evolved? You are prey animals. Soft creatures from a soft world." "We are prey animals," Danny agreed. "But we are prey animals that learned to hunt. A long time ago, before we had cities or technology, humans survived by hunting animals much larger and faster than ourselves. We could not catch them in a sprint. So we chased them for days. We followed them until they collapsed from exhaustion. We call it persistence hunting." Ziravel moved closer. "I do not see what this has to do with fighting." "Everything," Danny said. "We learned to beat things that should have beaten us. And we never stop learning. Every generation, we got a little better. Every war taught us new tricks. We did not just learn one way to fight. We learned 1,000 ways. And then we combined them into something new." He turned to face her. "When I fought you, I was not using one fighting style. I was using pieces of 100 different styles. Some of them are older than your empire. Some of them were invented last year. Humans do not stop improving. We cannot afford to. Because we are soft and weak and fragile, we have to be smart. We have to be adaptable. We have to find ways to win that stronger species never think about." Ziravel considered this. Her golden eyes were thoughtful. "So humans are not weak," she said slowly. "You are different. We are both. We are the weakest species in the galaxy, and we are also the most dangerous. Because we know we are weak. We never forget it. And that knowledge drives us to find ways to overcome our weakness. Ziravel sat down on the only chair in the room. It was too small for her, but she did not seem to notice. I made my challenge because I thought it would be easy, she said. I wanted to show the galaxy that Korvathi were still the greatest warriors. I wanted to prove that no one could stand against us. And now? Now I am not sure what I believe. She looked at him. You have made me doubt everything I was taught. Everything I thought I knew. In Korvathi culture, strength is the only thing that matters. But you showed me that there are other kinds of strength. Danny sat down on his bed, facing her. Your people are not weak, Ziravel. You are incredibly strong. But strength alone is not enough to survive in this galaxy. Not anymore. What else is there? Learning, growing, changing, admitting when you are wrong and finding ways to get better. That is what humans do. That is what we have always done. Ziravel was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was softer than Danny had heard it before. I said I would marry any human who beat me. I gave my word before the whole galaxy. You do not have to keep that promise. I will not hold you to it, but I will hold myself to it. She stood up and looked down at him. I do not know if I can love you, Danny Cole. I do not even know if I like you. But you have shown me something I have never seen before. And I want to understand it better. She held out her hand. It was a human gesture. She must have learned it from somewhere. Danny stood and took her hand. Her scales were warm and smooth against his skin. Then let us learn together, he said. Outside the room, Captain Maria Santos listened at the door. She could not hear what they were saying, but she could tell that no one was fighting. Maybe, she thought, this crazy situation might work out after all. She had no idea how right she was, or how much it would change the galaxy. 3 months passed before the wedding could happen. The negotiations were harder than any battle. The Korvathi Empire and the United Earth Government argued about everything. Where would the ceremony take place? What laws would apply to the couple? What would happen to any children they might have? Every question led to 10 more questions. Ambassador Patricia Webb led the human side of the talks. She was a tall woman with white hair and sharp blue eyes. She had been a diplomat for 30 years, and she had never seen anything like this. They want Danny to renounce his Earth citizenship, she told Captain Maria Santos one evening. They say he must become fully Korvathi. Maria shook her head. Danny will never agree to that. I know. And the Korvathi will not accept him keeping his human citizenship. They say it would make him a divided person with divided loyalty. What about a compromise? Can he have both? Patricia smiled tiredly. That is what we have been working toward. Dual citizenship for both Danny and Ziravel. They would be citizens of both nations at the same time. Has that ever been done before? Never. We would be creating something new. Something the galaxy has never seen. While the diplomats argued, Danny and Ziravel spent time together. They met every day, sometimes for hours. At first, they mostly talked about fighting. Danny showed her human martial arts. Ziravel showed him Korvathi combat techniques. They practiced together, and slowly they learned to understand each other. But they also talked about other things. About their families. About their dreams. About what they wanted from life. I always knew I would be a warrior, Ziravel told him one afternoon. They were sitting in a garden on Station Vareth 9, surrounded by plants from 100 different worlds. From the day I was born, my path was set. I would train. I would fight. I would bring honor to my family and my empire. Did you ever want something else? Danny asked. Ziravel was quiet for a moment. Sometimes. When I was young, I liked to watch the stars. I would wonder what was out there, what other worlds looked like, what other people's thought and felt. She made a sound that might have been a laugh. But such wondering was not useful. A warrior does not dream. A warrior fights. On Earth, we have a saying, all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. Who is Jack? It is just a name. The saying means that if you only do one thing, you become boring and empty. You need variety in life. You need to experience different things. Ziravel looked at him with her golden eyes. Is that why humans are so strange? Because you try to do everything? Maybe, or maybe we are just restless. We cannot sit still. We always need to be moving, learning, growing. That sounds exhausting. Danny smiled. It is, but it is also exciting. The day of the wedding finally came. It was held on a station called Haven Point, a neutral place that belonged to no nation. The station was decorated with flowers and lights from both human and Korvathi cultures. Red and gold banners hung next to blue and white ones. Thousands of guests came to watch. Aliens from dozens of species filled the great hall. News cameras floated everywhere, sending the images to billions of viewers across the galaxy. Danny's family flew in from Earth. His mother, Linda, cried when she saw him in his wedding clothes. His father, George, stood straight and proud, even though he was clearly nervous about being surrounded by so many aliens. Are you sure about this, son? George asked before the ceremony. They were standing in a small room behind the main hall. Danny was wearing a special uniform that combined human and Korvathi designs. It was black with red details, and it fit him perfectly. Not entirely, Danny admitted. But when have I ever been sure about anything? You were always the one who jumped first and thought later. George put his hand on Danny's shoulder. Your mother and I, we worry about you. This alien woman, she is not like any girl you ever dated before. No, she is not. And you think you can be happy with her? Really happy? Danny thought about it. I think we can learn to be happy together. I think we can teach each other things. I think we can build something good. George nodded slowly. That is more than most couples start with. Your mother and I, we did not know if we would work out either. But we decided to try. And here we are, 40 years later. And you are still together. We are still together. George smiled. Love is not something you find, Danny. It is something you build. Brick by brick, day by day. If you are willing to do the work, you can build it with anyone. The ceremony itself was long and complicated. It combined traditions from both cultures. There was a Korvathi blood ritual where Danny and Ziravel cut their palms and pressed them together. There was a human exchange of rings. There were vows spoken in English and in the clicking, hissing Korvathi language. When it was finally over, Danny and Ziravel stood before the crowd as husband and wife. The aliens cheered and clapped and made whatever sounds their species made to show approval. Ambassador Patricia Webb gave a toast. To Danny and Ziravel, may your marriage show the galaxy that even the most different peoples can find common ground. May you build something beautiful together. Later that night, after the guests had gone and the cameras had stopped recording, Danny and Ziravel sat alone in their new quarters. It was a large room with furniture designed for both human and Korvathi comfort. That was exhausting, Ziravel said. She had taken off her ceremonial armor and was wearing a simple robe. Which part? The ceremony or the 18 hours of talking to strangers? Both. She looked at him. Your Aunt Margaret asked me if I could lay eggs. Danny winced. I am sorry about her. She does not think before she speaks. I told her that Korvathi give live birth like humans. She seemed disappointed. She was probably hoping for grandchildren with scales. Ziravel made the grinding sound that Danny had learned was her version of a laugh. I like your family. They are strange and ask too many questions, but they are honest. They say what they think. That is not always a good thing. Maybe not, but it is refreshing. In the Gulvathi court, everyone lies. Everyone plays games. Your family just says what is in their hearts. She reached out and took his hand. Her 4 fingers wrapped around his 5. The scales were warm against his skin. Danny, I must tell you something. Something I should have told you before. What is it? She was quiet for a moment, gathering her thoughts. I was not entirely honest about why I made that challenge. The Gulvathi Empire is in trouble. Our birth rate is falling. Every generation, there are fewer of us. Our military grows weaker while other species grow stronger. Danny nodded slowly. I had heard rumors. We have been the greatest warriors in the galaxy for 100,000 years. But we have stopped growing. We have stopped changing. We are still strong, but we are not getting stronger. And the galaxy does not wait for those who stand still. So you made the challenge because I wanted to learn something. I watched humanity rise. In just a few hundred years, you went from knowing nothing about space to building ships that could cross the galaxy. You learned faster than any species we had ever seen. I wanted to understand how you did it. She squeezed his hand. I expected to win my challenge. I always expected to win. But part of me hoped that I would not. Because losing might teach my people something that winning never could. Danny was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was gentle. And now? What have you learned? I have learned that strength is not enough. Speed is not enough. To survive in this galaxy, we must be willing to change. We must be willing to learn from others, even from species we once thought were beneath us. She looked at him with her golden eyes. You are not what I expected, Danny Cole. You are strange and soft, and you think too much. But you have shown me a different way of seeing the universe. And I am grateful for that. Danny leaned over and kissed her cheek. It was an awkward gesture, since her face was shaped differently than a human face. But she seemed to understand what he meant by it. We have a lot of work ahead of us, he said. Building a marriage. Building bridges between our peoples. It will not be easy. No, it will not. But I think we can do it. Together. Ziravel showed her teeth in a smile. Together, she agreed. That is a human word I am learning to like. Outside their window, the stars burned bright and cold. 2 very different beings sat together, holding hands, looking toward a future that neither of them could predict. But whatever that future held, they would face it together. And that made all the difference. 10 years passed. The marriage of Danny Cole and Ziravel changed the galaxy in ways that no one had expected. It started small, with cultural exchanges between humans and Gulvathi. Human teachers went to Gulvathi worlds. Gulvathi warriors trained with human soldiers. Slowly, the 2 species began to understand each other, and then other species started paying attention. The Veluxi were an insect-like race, known for building the best machines in the galaxy. They had always thought of humans as too emotional, too chaotic. But they saw what human creativity could do when combined with their engineering skills. Within 5 years, human Veluxi teams had built a new type of engine that could travel twice as fast as anything before. The Morthaki were telepathic beings who lived mainly in their minds. They had thought human art and music were primitive. But when they actually listened, really listened, they found something they had never experienced before. Human emotions were so strong, so raw, that they created new patterns of thought that the Morthaki had never imagined. The Trellin Collective was a group mind made up of millions of connected beings. They had dismissed individual thinking as inefficient. But they discovered that human negotiators could solve problems that their collective minds could not. Something about the way humans thought, so differently from each other, allowed them to find solutions that no single mind could see. One by one, species that had looked down on humanity began to look again. And what they saw surprised them. Danny retired from the military and became a teacher. He started a school on Haven Point called the Combined Species Combat Academy. Students came from 17 different species to learn from him. Strength is not enough, he told every new class. Speed is not enough. The warrior who survives is the one who learns, the one who changes, the one who never stops growing. His students came from everywhere. Kovathi warriors who wanted to learn human techniques. Veluxi engineers who wanted to understand how humans thought about fighting. Even some Morthaki who wanted to feel what physical combat was like through their telepathic abilities. Danny taught them all the same lessons he had lived by his whole life. Use your weaknesses as strengths. Learn from everyone. Never assume you know everything. Ziravel continued her military career. She became a commander, then a general, then something even higher. She led the first combined fleet in galactic history, with ships and crews from 8 different species working together. Her flagship was called Unity. It was a strange ship, built from technologies that had never been combined before. Human computers, Kovathi weapons, Veluxi engines, Morthaki communication systems. On paper, it should not have worked, but somehow it did. The galaxy is changing, she told her crew on the ship's first mission. Old enemies are becoming friends. Old barriers are breaking down. We are building something new here, something that has never existed before. The crew cheered. They believed in her. They believed in the future she was describing. Danny and Ziravel had 2 children. The first was a boy they named Marcus. He had his mother's golden eyes and his father's calm nature. He was born on Haven Point, in a hospital that had been built specifically to handle mixed species births. The doctors were not sure what to expect. No one had ever seen a human Kovathi child before. Marcus was healthy. He had some scales on his arms and back, but softer than his mother's. He was stronger than a human child, but not as strong as a Kovathi child. He was something new, something in between. He is beautiful, Linda Cole said when she saw her grandson for the first time. She was older now, her hair completely white, but her eyes were still sharp. He has your nose, Danny. And my mother's temper, Danny replied. He screamed for 3 hours last night. The second child was a girl they named Kira. She had her father's gray eyes and her mother's fierce spirit. From the moment she could walk, she wanted to fight. Danny started teaching her basic moves when she was 4 years old. She is going to be trouble, Ziravel said proudly. She's going to be great, Danny corrected. The children grew up between 2 worlds, 2 cultures, 2 ways of thinking. They learned English and Kovathi. They studied human history and Kovathi traditions. They practiced both human martial arts and Kovathi combat techniques. And they asked questions. So many questions. Why did you fight Mom? Marcus asked his father one day. He was 8 years old enough to understand the story, but still young enough to wonder about it. Because someone had to show the galaxy what humans could do. Danny said, but you could have died. Yes. Were you scared? Danny thought about it. A little. But I was more scared of what would happen if no one stood up. The galaxy thought humans were weak. They thought we were prey. I wanted to show them that we were more than that. And now? Now they know. Now they respect us. Not because we are the strongest or the fastest, but because we never give up. We never stop trying to be better. Marcus thought about this. Is that why you started the school? To teach other species how to be like humans? Not exactly. I started the school to teach everyone that they can learn from each other. Humans have good ideas. Kovathi have good ideas. Every species has something valuable to share. The trick is being willing to listen. On the 10th anniversary of Danny and Ziravel's marriage, they returned to Station Vareth 9. The combat festival was still held there every year, but it had changed. It was no longer just about fighting. It had become a celebration of cooperation, of different peoples coming together to learn from each other. The arena where they had fought was now called Coal Arena. A statue stood at its entrance, showing Danny and Ziravel facing each other, hands raised in greeting instead of combat. Ziravel stood before the crowd, her children beside her, her husband at her back. She was older now. Her scales had faded slightly, and she moved more carefully than she once had. But her voice was still strong. 10 years ago, I stood in this arena and made a challenge, she said. I thought I was proving Korvathi's strength. Instead, I learned Korvathi weakness. I learned that being strong is not enough. I learned that the greatest warriors are the ones who know they can still learn. She looked at Danny, standing behind her with their children. My husband taught me that. A human, the species that everyone thought was weak. He showed me that true strength comes not from muscles or claws, but from the courage to admit when you are wrong and the wisdom to learn from others. Danny stepped forward and took her hand. Humans have a saying, he said to the crowd. No one succeeds alone. We are stronger together than we could ever be apart. That is not weakness. That is wisdom. That is growth. That is evolution. Marcus and Kira stood between their parents. They were something new in the galaxy. Not human, not Korvathi, but both at once. They were living proof that different peoples could come together and create something beautiful. In the crowd, species that had never spoken to each other stood side by side. Korvathi warriors talked with human soldiers. Veluxi engineers shared ideas with Marthaki philosophers. The galaxy was changing, slowly but surely, one connection at a time. Later that night, back on Haven Point, Danny and Ziravel sat by the window in their quarters. The children were asleep in the next room. Do you ever regret it? Danny asked. Regret what? Losing that fight. Marrying a human. All of this. Ziravel turned to look at him. She was quieter now than she had been 10 years ago. More thoughtful. More gentle. I did not lose that day, Danny. I won something more valuable than any fight. I won a partner. I won a family. I won a new way of seeing the universe. She took his hand, wrapping all 4 of her arms around his too. Humans have another saying, yes? Something about love? Danny smiled. We have many sayings about love. Which one? The one about love winning. Love conquers all. Yes, that one. She leaned her head against his shoulder. I used to think that was foolish, soft, weak. But now I understand. Love is not weak. Love is the strongest force in the universe. It makes us willing to change, willing to grow, willing to become something more than we were. Danny kissed the top of her head. We have a lot more work to do, he said. Building bridges, teaching the galaxy, raising our children to be better than we are. Yes, but we can do it. Together. Ziravel closed her golden eyes. Together, she agreed. Outside, the stars burned eternal. They did not care about the small dramas of mortal beings. But within those small dramas, something important was growing. Understanding, partnership, hope. Humanity would face many challenges in the years to come. They would make mistakes. They would suffer losses. Sometimes they would fail, but they would never face those challenges alone. They had made friends across the stars. They had built families with species they had never imagined meeting. They had proven that the smallest and weakest could stand beside the largest and strongest. In the end, that was the lesson. The universe is vast and cold and dangerous. But if you reach out your hand, sometimes someone reaches back. And that changes everything. The end.